Enjoy the following 1 hour-long sleep and bedtime story to fall asleep quickly and relaxed. Subscribe and leave a like to support my channel. Thank you and stay till the end. Enjoy. The town was quiet that night, wrapped in a thick, silvery mist that curled through the narrow streets like a living thing. The lamplights cast a dim golden glow, their reflections flickering in puddles left behind by an earlier rain. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and distant pine, mingled with the crisp bite of autumn. Somewhere in the distance, a clock tower struck midnight, its chime low and mournful, reverberating through the silence. Elias pulled his coat tighter around his shoulders as he made his way toward the old train station. He didn't know why he was drawn here tonight, only that something deep within him, something beyond reason, compelled him to go. The station had been abandoned for decades, its iron gates rusted, its wooden signs worn smooth by time and weather. No trains had run here in years. Yet as he approached, a peculiar sensation filled his chest, a whispering, an anticipation, like the hum of the universe itself. He stopped at the entrance, staring at the faded lettering on the cracked wooden arch above. Lyra Station. It was a place few spoke of anymore, a relic of the past. His grandfather had once told him stories about this station, tales of strange trains that came and went in the dead of night, carrying passengers to places not marked on any map. As a child, Elias had believed them to be mere fables, bedtime stories meant to lull him to sleep. But now, standing in front of the place itself, he wondered if there had been truth hidden beneath the fantasy. The iron gates stood slightly ajar, creaking softly as a breeze passed through them. Elias hesitated for only a moment before stepping inside. The station was as empty as he had expected. The wooden platforms stretched ahead, the paint on the benches peeling, the lanterns long extinguished. The train tracks were barely visible beneath a tangle of weeds and ivy, stretching into the endless darkness beyond. He took another step forward, and then he heard it. A low, distant whistle. Elias froze. His pulse quickened. He turned toward the tracks, expecting nothing but the empty void of night. Instead, a strange glow flickered at the horizon. The light pulsed softly, growing brighter, illuminating the mist like moonlight upon a restless sea. The ground beneath him trembled ever so slightly. Then, out of the darkness, the train appeared. It emerged as though materializing from the very fabric of the cosmos itself. The locomotive shimmered like liquid silver, its surface reflecting the constellations above. The wheels made no sound as they moved, gliding effortlessly along the ancient tracks. Its body was adorned with celestial engravings, moons, stars, swirling galaxies, all shifting and changing as though alive. The train pulled into the station with a soft, melodic hum. Steam hissed from its underbelly, curling into the night like spectral ribbons. The doors slid open soundlessly, revealing an interior unlike anything Elias had ever seen. There were no seats, no ordinary compartments, only a vast, endless sky. Inside the train, the walls seemed to dissolve into the cosmos itself. A deep, velvety blue stretched infinitely in all directions, speckled with stars that twinkled and pulsed like living things. The floor beneath was not solid, but instead appeared to be woven from strands of starlight, shifting under an unseen current. Elias's breath caught in his throat. This was impossible. And yet, it was real. He took a hesitant step closer, his boots barely making a sound against the weathered wooden planks of the platform. "Are you boarding, traveler?" The voice was smooth and deep, carrying a weight of centuries within it. Elias turned sharply, his gaze falling upon a tall figure standing just beside the train. The person, or perhaps the being, was draped in a cloak woven from something that resembled the night sky itself. Stars twinkled across the fabric, their light shifting with every movement. Their face was obscured by the hood, but there was no mistaking the quiet authority in their presence. "Where does this train go?" Elias asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The figure gave a slow, knowing smile. "To places unseen, to realms beyond the veil of time, to the echoes of forgotten dreams." Elias felt a shiver pass through him. He glanced back at the empty town behind him, the lonely streets, the darkened windows, the world he had known for so long. And then he looked ahead, into the impossible expanse waiting just beyond the train's open door. His fingers curled around a silver pocket watch in his coat. It had belonged to his grandfather, its gears frozen in time since the day he had passed away. Yet now, as Elias held it, he felt something strange, a warm, a gentle vibration, as if the watch itself was telling him it was time. A deep breath, a step forward. And then, before doubt could stop him, he crossed the threshold. The moment his foot touched the train's interior, a sensation unlike anything he had ever known washed over him. It was as though he was being unraveled and rewoven, his very essence stretching across the cosmos before settling back into place. The doors slid shut behind him with a soft whisper. The train lurched forward. Outside the window, the station faded away, dissolving into the mist. The world he had always known vanished in an instant, replaced by something else entirely. The sky outside was no longer the sky of Earth. It was an endless expanse of swirling galaxies, of celestial rivers flowing through the void. Planets drifted lazily in the distance, their surfaces glowing with soft luminescence. Comets streaked past like silver fish swimming through a cosmic ocean. Elias pressed a hand against the glass, his heartbeat steady, his mind awash with wonder. He was no longer bound to the world he had left behind. He was somewhere else, somewhere beyond time, beyond reality, and his journey had only just begun. Elias stood motionless as the cosmic train surged forward, its shimmering carriages gliding soundlessly through the celestial expanse. The air inside was cool, filled with the soft scent of something he couldn't quite place, like morning dew on untouched grass, or the whisper of distant rain on a forgotten world. The interior of the train stretched far beyond what seemed possible, its corridors dissolving into infinite horizons. The walls around him were fluid, shifting between translucent glass and open sky. Stars flickered across the surfaces like living constellations, rearranging themselves in slow, deliberate patterns. It was as if the train was breathing, alive in a way no earthly machine had ever been. Elias reached out hesitantly, brushing his fingertips against the closest wall. A ripple spread outward, distorting the galaxies within, and for a brief moment he thought he could hear whispers, soft, melodic voices singing in a language older than time itself. A gentle chime echoed through the train, and a soft vibration passed beneath his feet. The celestial conductor, the mysterious cloaked figure who had greeted him at the station, emerged from the shadows once more. Their robes flowed like liquid night, their presence as weightless as the stars outside. "We are arriving," the conductor said, their voice as steady as the universe itself. Elias's pulse quickened. Arriving where? The conductor simply gestured toward the grand window beside him. As Elias turned his gaze outward, his breath caught in his throat. The train was slowing, approaching a vast realm unlike anything he had ever seen. Below them, an immense sea of light stretched endlessly, its surface rippling like liquid stardust. But this was no ordinary ocean. It was made of shimmering memories, golden echoes of voices and stories long forgotten. Waves of light lapped gently against the shores of floating islands, each one shaped by fragments of lost time. Some islands were no bigger than a house, while others stretched for miles, their landscapes woven from dreams and stardust. Towering structures of crystalline glass and drifting bridges of pure luminescence connected them in an ever-shifting labyrinth. This was no mere stop. This was an entire world. The realm of starlit echoes, conductor intoned, a place where memories that have been lost to the ages find refuge. This is where the forgotten come to be remembered. Elias swallowed. He could feel the energy of this place, the quiet hum of stories waiting to be heard. He had always believed that memories faded with time, slipping into nothingness. But now before him was proof that nothing was ever truly lost. With a barely perceptible shift, the train eased onto an invisible track above the luminous sea. The doors slid open without a sound, revealing a smooth pathway of glowing stone that stretched out toward the nearest floating island. Elias hesitated for only a moment before stepping out, his boots meeting the surface with surprising solidity. The platform beneath him pulsed gently, like the heartbeat of the cosmos itself. The conductor did not follow. Instead, they simply inclined their head. "You must walk this path alone," they said. "Listen carefully. The echoes will find you." Before Elias could ask what that meant, the doors of the train whispered shut, and with a quiet shimmer, the cosmic locomotive dissolved into the void, leaving him standing alone in the middle of an impossible world. Elias turned, taking in his surroundings. The path beneath him extended toward a great archway of silver light, beyond which lay an intricate maze of floating structures. As he stepped forward, he noticed something strange. The very air around him shimmered, as though reality itself was delicate and thin here, like the surface of a pond disturbed by ripples. The atmosphere felt thick with unspoken words, the air heavy with stories waiting to be told. And then he heard it. A whisper. Soft at first, then clearer, an echo drifting through the realm. It wasn't just sound, but something more, something deeper. The moment it reached him, he felt it inside his very soul. "Do you remember?" The voice was faint, ethereal. Elias turned sharply, his eyes scanning the floating landscape. And then he saw them. Faint figures moved through the air, made entirely of light, ghostly impressions of people who no longer existed in the waking world. They were not solid, but neither were they illusions. They flickered and wavered like candle flames in the wind, shifting between clarity and obscurity. Some of them walked alone, their translucent forms drifting through the glowing streets of the city. Others moved in pairs, frozen in moments of conversation, their lips forming words Elias could not hear. These were memories, living, breathing, luminous recollections that had become untethered from time itself. A child ran past him, her laughter ringing in the air like a bell, though her feet made no sound against the glowing ground. An old man sat on a nearby bench, staring at the sky, his form flickering in and out of existence. And as Elias moved deeper into the city, he saw thousands more, some dancing in endless loops, others standing in silence, their faces filled with longing. He stopped at the center of the great plaza, where a towering obelisk of swirling gold stood, its surface inscribed with countless names. The whispers converged here, weaving together into something almost like music. And then one whisper stood out above the rest. Elias. His blood ran cold. He turned, heart pounding. The voice had come from behind him, from the edge of the luminous city, where the floating islands met the sea of starlit memories. He walked toward the voice, his steps slow, careful. The figures around him faded as he approached the shore, their echoes dissolving into mist. At the water's edge, standing just to the boundary between past and present, was a figure Elias recognized immediately. His grandfather. The old man's form was fragile, shimmering, his features illuminated by the soft golden glow of the memory sea. His hands were clasped behind his back, just as Elias had always remembered him standing on summer mornings, watching the horizon. But this was not just a memory, this was something more. His grandfather turned slowly, his gaze meeting Elias's with a depth of recognition that sent shivers down his spine. "You found your way here," the old man said, his voice like a distant echo. "I always hoped you would." Elias's throat tightened. He had spent years mourning this man, carrying the weight of words unspoken, a moment's lost to time. And now, against all reason, against all logic, he was standing here once more. "How?" Elias managed to whisper. His grandfather gave a small smile, the same kind and knowing smile Elias had seen 1,000 times before. "Nothing is ever truly lost," he said. "Not memories, not time, not the ones we love." Elias felt something shift inside him, something deep and unspoken. The whispers of the realm swirled around him, growing stronger. The past, the present, the infinite, they all converged here, in this impossible moment. And as the sea of echoes shimmered and pulsed beneath the starlit sky, Elias realized that his journey had only just begun. Elias stood frozen at the shore of the memory sea, staring into the warm glow of his grandfather's translucent form. Though time had taken the old man from him long ago, he was here, preserved in the luminous echoes of the past, as if the universe itself refused to let him be forgotten. His breath was unsteady as he stepped forward, his boots making no sound against the ethereal ground. "I don't understand," Elias whispered, his voice barely carried by the thick, humming air of the realm. "Are you real?" His grandfather chuckled softly, the same warm laugh Elias had grown up with. "I am as real as a memory can be," he said. "But then again, aren't memories the only things that ever truly last?" Elias swallowed hard. He had never believed in ghosts, nor in the idea that the past could reach back for the living. Yet here he stood, gazing into the eyes of a man he had thought lost forever. The warmth in his grandfather's expression was the same as it had always been, but there was something else there too, something ancient, knowing, as if the old man had seen things beyond time itself. "I've missed you," Elias admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. His grandfather nodded, his form flickering slightly like a candle in the wind. "I know." The words carried a weight Elias hadn't expected. He wanted to ask more, to understand what this place truly was. But before he could, his grandfather turned, looking out over the golden waves of the sea. "This realm is a bridge," he said, "a place where the forgotten find form, where lost voices whisper to those willing to listen." His gaze shifted back to Elias. "And you, my boy, have much yet to hear." Elias frowned. "What do you mean?" His grandfather gestured to the shifting landscape behind them, the floating city of glowing pathways and drifting figures, the names inscribed upon a great obelisk. "This realm holds more than just me," he said. "It holds echoes of things long past, stories waiting to be reclaimed. And if you are to continue forward, you must first walk among them." The words settled heavily upon Elias. He had boarded the cosmic train without understanding where it would take him, driven by nothing more than an instinctive pull towards something greater. Now, standing in this luminous dreamscape, he realized his journey was not simply one of movement, but of discovery. He turned back toward the floating city, the golden pathways weaving endlessly into the glowing mist. The figures of forgotten souls drifted between the buildings, each one carrying a story left untold. Where do I start? Elias asked. His grandfather smiled knowingly. Follow the echoes. And with that, the old man stepped back into the sea of light, his form dissolving into the waves. Elias took his first steps into the heart of the city. The air around him shimmered with whispers, soft voices overlapping in a language older than time itself. The structures that towered over him, bridges of luminescence, staircases suspended in mist, felt both ancient and fluid, as if they were not built, but dreamed into existence. As he walked, the whispers became clearer, resolving into individual voices. Some were faint, mere murmurs drifting on unseen currents. Others were sharper, more distinct, calling out to him in gentle urgency. And then one voice stood out above the rest. Elias. He froze. It was not the voice of his grandfather. This voice was softer, younger, familiar in a way he could not immediately place. He turned his head, searching for the source. The luminous city stretched endlessly before him, pathways twisting and folding upon themselves like threads in a great cosmic tapestry. Yet among the infinite echoes, this one voice seemed to pull at something deep within him. Without hesitation, he followed it. The path led him through an archway of glowing silver, into a garden suspended between the stars. The plants here were unlike anything he had seen before. Flowers with petals of shifting constellations, vines that wove themselves into intricate living patterns. Tiny motes of stardust drifted through the air like fireflies, pulsing gently as if in time with the heartbeat of the realm itself. At the center of the garden stood a lone figure. She was seated on the edge of a small, luminous fountain, her feet barely grazing the glowing surface of the water. Her form was hazy, flickering between solidity and mist, as if she existed only halfway between the past and the present. Elias's breath caught in his throat. He knew her, but that was impossible. She turned slowly, her features becoming clearer in the golden light. She was young, perhaps in her early 20s, with eyes that held the depth of distant galaxies. Her hair shimmered like silver-threaded midnight, cascading over her shoulders in waves. Elias knew that face. It was his mother's, but not as he remembered her. This was not the woman who had raised him, nor the one whose hair had been touched by the passage of years. This was his mother as she had been in her youth, before he was born, before time had carved its lines into her gentle features. He took a shaky step forward. Mom. She looked at him, and for a long moment there was silence. Then a slow, bittersweet smile spread across her lips. I was hoping you'd find me, she whispered. Elias felt his entire body tense with emotion. His mother was still alive, back on Earth, living a life far removed from the one he was walking now. And yet, here she was, or at least some part of her, an echo preserved in the fabric of the realm. I don't understand, he said, his voice barely holding steady. You're not gone. How can you be here? She tilted her head slightly, studying him with a look of quiet understanding. This realm doesn't just hold memories of those who have passed, she said. It holds memories that have been lost, forgotten even by the ones who lived them. Elias frowned, confusion knitting his brow. She reached out, her hand hovering just above his. Though she was made of light, he could almost feel her warmth. There are pieces of ourselves that we leave behind, she continued. Moments that slip through the cracks of time. We forget them, but they don't disappear. Her gaze softened. I think this is one of those pieces. Elias's chest tightened. His mother had never spoken of her past in much detail. There were gaps in her stories, moments she had never shared. And now he was standing in one of them. Then this is your memory, he asked. She nodded. A piece of it, at least. Elias exhaled slowly, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He had come to this realm seeking something unknown, but he had never expected to find this, to step into the echoes of lives still unfolding. His mother looked up at the starlit sky, her expression wistful. "Stay a while," she said softly. "There are things I'd like to remember with you." And as the luminous garden shimmered around them, Elias sat beside the mother he had never known, ready to listen to the echoes of a past that had almost been lost to time. Little did he know, his journey through the celestial realms was only just beginning. Elias sat in silence beside his mother's echo, absorbing every word, every moment of the past she had forgotten. She spoke of dreams left behind, of roads not taken, of childhood secrets that had once defined her, but had long since faded into obscurity. Yet, even as she shared these fragments of her past, Elias felt a pull, an unseen force calling him deeper into the realm. It was as if the very fabric of this place knew he was not meant to linger too long in one moment, no matter how precious. His mother must have sensed it too. "You have to keep going," she said gently, her luminous form flickering. Elias hesitated. "But what if I forget this?" She smiled, the same gentle expression he had known all his life. "Memories don't disappear, Elias. They only wait to be found again." The words settled in his chest like a quiet reassurance. He wanted to stay longer, to hold on to this impossible reunion, but the path ahead was clear. He had to move forward. With one last look at his mother's echo, he stepped back onto the glowing path that wound through the city of memories. The moment he did, the whispers in the air shifted once more, guiding him towards something new. The golden pathways of the city soon gave way to something else entirely. Before him rose a massive structure, an enormous, sprawling library built of celestial stone, its walls shimmering with an ethereal glow. Towering bookshelves stretched toward the endless sky, their spines inscribed with constellations that shifted and pulsed like living stars. The entrance was an archway carved from the bones of forgotten stories, its surface inscribed with words in 1,000 different languages. As Elias stepped inside, the silence was almost deafening. Not the empty kind, but a silence filled with presence, a hush of waiting, as if the library itself was alive, listening. A voice broke the stillness. "You have come seeking knowledge." Elias turned sharply. A figure stood among the shelves, shrouded in deep blue robes that rippled like liquid night. Their face was obscured, but their hands, pale and luminous, traced the spines of books with quiet reverence. "Who are you?" Elias asked cautiously. The figure tilted their head slightly, as if considering the question. "I am the keeper of forgotten tomes." Their voice was neither young nor old, neither male nor female. It was as if the library itself was speaking through them. Elias's fingers curled slightly at his sides. "What is this place?" The keeper gestured around them. "This is the library of forgotten tomes, a place where lost knowledge is kept. Every story left untold, every truth erased by time, is all here." Elias's eyes widened. He turned to the shelves, running his fingers along the books. Some were ancient, bound in crumbling leather, while others seemed impossibly new, their pages shimmering with ink that had yet to dry. "If these are forgotten," Elias said slowly, "then how are they here?" The keeper took a step forward, the air around them shifting like a disturbance in the cosmos. "The universe does not lose things, Elias. It only waits for someone to find them again." Elias's mind reeled. How many stories had been lost to time? How many voices had faded into silence, their words never heard? And yet, here they all were, waiting on these shelves, preserved in a way that defied reality itself. Then, as if guided by unseen hands, his gaze landed on a single book resting on a pedestal in the center of the vast hall. It was smaller than the others, its cover a deep midnight blue, its title glowing faintly in golden script. His own name was written on the cover. Elias's heart pounded. Slowly, hesitantly, he reached out and opened the book. The pages inside were not filled with text, but with memories, his memories. He saw himself as a child, running through fields of tall grass under a sky that never seemed to end. He saw himself as a teenager, staring at the stars, longing for something greater than the life he knew. He saw the day he first boarded the Starbound Voyager, the moment he stepped onto the train that had carried him across the cosmos. And then the pages turned on their own, faster, faster, flipping towards something he had not yet lived. A glimpse of the journey ahead. A vision of a great celestial bridge stretching between two worlds. A shadow that whispered his name from the edge of existence. And then the book snapped shut. Elias stumbled backward, his breath ragged. The keeper stood motionless beside him, watching. What was that? Elias asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The keeper's unseen gaze seemed to pierce through him. That is the story you have yet to write. Elias's pulse thundered in his ears. The book had shown him glimpses of his past, but also something else, fragments of a future he did not yet understand. You must be careful, the keeper warned. Knowledge is powerful, but some things are meant to be discovered, not seen. Elias clutched the book to his chest, feeling the weight of it, the enormity of what it contained. The library of forgotten tomes held stories that had been lost to time. But now Elias realized it also held something else. His own fate. And for the first time since stepping onto the Starbound Voyager, he truly wondered, where was this journey leading him? Elias clutched the midnight blue book to his chest, its weight far heavier than its size should allow. His mind reeled with the knowledge it contained, his past, his present, and shadows of a future he had yet to understand. The keeper of forgotten tomes stood before him, their hooded form unmoving, waiting. What do I do with this? Elias finally asked, his voice hoarse from the flood of emotions. The keeper tilted their heads slightly, their unseen gaze still locked onto him. That is not for me to answer. Elias swallowed hard. But it showed me things I haven't lived yet. That means the future is already written, doesn't it? The keeper was silent for a long moment. Then, with a slow movement, they extended a pale hand and brushed their fingers over the book's surface. The golden lettering shimmered, shifting like ink freshly spilled across the sky. The future is a path, Elias. But a path is not a prison. The words settled over him, sinking deep into his thoughts. Could he change what had been written? Or was he merely a passenger, carried forward on the tracks of time? Before he could ask another question, the air in the vast library shifted. A deep, resonant hum filled the space, as if the very walls of the realm were stirring from slumber. The keeper turned their head slightly. Your journey continues. Elias barely had time to react before the library began to dissolve around him. The endless bookshelves shimmered, turning into streaks of golden light, swirling like ink in water. The ground beneath him vanished, and he felt himself falling. No, not falling. Being transported. He clenched the book against his chest as the golden light enveloped him entirely, and then he landed on solid ground. For a moment he lay still, catching his breath. The air smelled different here, crisp, electric, tinged with the scent of ozone after a storm. Slowly, he pushed himself up, taking in his surroundings. He stood on a vast bridge, stretching endlessly into the distance. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, a structure woven from celestial threads, shimmering silver and deep violet, suspended in a cosmic void. Beneath it, stars churned in slow, endless motion, an ocean of constellations swirling far below. A bridge between worlds. Elias turned, searching for any sign of where he had come from. Behind him, the path he had taken had already faded into nothingness. Ahead, the bridge extended endlessly, disappearing into a glowing mist at the horizon. There was only one way to go. He took a tentative step forward. The bridge was solid beneath his feet, but it felt alive, pulsing with energy, as if it were shifting with every step he took. As he walked, the mist ahead of him began to thin, revealing towering archways of light that flickered in and out of existence. And then, a voice. "You have finally arrived." Elias froze. The voice was deep, resonant, ancient. It echoed from the space ahead, carrying the weight of eternity itself. From the mist emerged a figure, tall and imposing, cloaked in flowing robes woven from the fabric of the night sky itself. Their face was partially obscured by a veil of swirling stardust, but their eyes, twin galaxies, spiraling infinitely, locked onto Elias with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. Elias swallowed, gripping the book tightly. "Who are you?" The figure regarded him for a moment before speaking. "I am the keeper of the threshold, the guardian of the path between realms." Elias's heartbeat quickened. "What is this place?" The keeper's voice was steady, measured. "You stand at the bridge between worlds. Few travelers reach this point, for it is the threshold between what was and what will be." Elias glanced down at the book in his hands, its midnight blue cover still glowing faintly. "I saw my future in this," he said, his voice uncertain. "Or at least a version of it." The keeper's gaze did not waver. "And what did you learn?" Elias hesitated. "I saw something, a shadow at the edge of existence. It whispered my name." For the first time, the keeper's expression changed. Not quite fear, but something close to it, a solemn understanding. "The shadow of the unwritten," they murmured. Elias's breath caught. "What?" The keeper stepped forward, their robes flowing around them like liquid starlight. "Not all stories are meant to be told. Some remain unwritten, lingering at the edges of time, waiting. The shadow is what exists beyond the final chapter, the untold, the forgotten, the erased." Elias's grip on the book tightened. "But why was it calling my name?" The keeper studied him carefully. "Because you carry the weight of a story yet to be completed." Elias felt a chill sweep over him, despite the warm glow of the celestial bridge. "What happens if I reach the end of my journey?" The keeper was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, they raised a hand and gestured toward the mist ahead. "You must cross the threshold to find out." Elias's stomach twisted with uncertainty. He had come so far from the cosmic train station through the Dreamweaver's domain into the city of memories and the library of forgotten tomes. And now here he stood at the precipice of something even greater. But what lay beyond the bridge? What waited for him on the other side? The mist thickened, swirling with silver and violet, and deep within its depths, he could almost hear it again. A whisper, calling his name. Elias took a deep breath and stepped forward. As Elias stepped forward, the mist swallowed him whole. For a moment, there was nothing, no sound, no light, no sense of direction, just an infinite stillness, as if he had stepped outside of existence itself. Then, all at once, the silence shattered. A great rushing force pulled at him, as though the mist had become a living tide, dragging him forward through an unseen current. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. He clutched the midnight blue book against his chest, his only tether to what was real. And then, the mist parted. Elias stumbled forward, landing on solid ground. His breath came in sharp gasps as he took in his surroundings. He was no longer on the celestial bridge. The world around him was vast and strange, unlike any realm he had seen before. Towering spires of ink-black stone rose from the ground, twisting upward like frozen tendrils of smoke. The sky above was not filled with stars, but with swirling streams of silver light, shifting and reshaping as if written by an unseen hand. And there, it hummed, not with music nor with voices, but with something deeper, something older. It was as if the very fabric of this place was alive, vibrating with stories yet to be told. Elias swallowed hard. He had entered the threshold between worlds, the realm of the unwritten. He turned, searching for any sign of the keeper of the threshold, but the bridge was gone. The mist that had brought him here had dissipated, leaving only the towering spires and the shifting sky. He was alone, or so he thought. A voice slithered through the air. "You have come at last." Elias froze. The voice was unlike any he had heard before, neither loud nor soft, neither deep nor high. It was fluid, ever-changing, as if spoken by 1,000 voices at once, overlapping and merging. Slowly he turned. From the shadows of the spires, something emerged. A figure robed in darkness, taller than any human should be. Its form was fluid, shifting like ink spreading through water. And where its face should have been, there was only a void, an empty space where light was swallowed whole. Elias's breath caught in his throat. The shadow of the unwritten. It did not move toward him, nor did it threaten him. It simply stood, its presence overwhelming, as if the entire weight of forgotten time had taken shape before him. Elias forced himself to speak. "Who are you?" The shadow's form flickered, shifting as if struggling to remain solid. "I am the echo of the untold," it murmured. "The keeper of lost stories. The guardian of what could have been, and what might still be." Elias's grip on the midnight blue book tightened. "Why did you call my name?" The shadow tilted its head, as if studying him. "Because you are more than just a traveler." Elias frowned. "What do you mean?" The shadow lifted one long, shifting arm and pointed toward the book in Elias's hands. "You carry more than memories. You carry possibility." Elias looked down. The book's cover glowed faintly, its golden letters shimmering. "Possibility," he echoed. The shadow moved closer, and though Elias wanted to step back, he forced himself to stand his ground. "The universe is not a single story, Elias," the shadow whispered. "It is a collection of many. Some are written. Some are erased. Some have yet to be told." Elias swallowed hard. "And what does that have to do with me?" The shadow did not answer right away. Instead, it reached out with one shifting hand and, without touching Elias, gestured toward the sky. Elias followed its motion and gasped. The swirling silver light above them suddenly shifted. Shapes began to form, images playing out in an endless stream. He saw worlds he had never visited, cities that had never been built, people who had never been born, stories that had never been written. And then he saw himself, not just one version, but many. In one, he stood atop a mountain of glowing crystal, staring at a shattered sky. In another, he walked through a golden desert, his face turned toward an eclipse. In yet another, he was not human at all, but a being of pure light, drifting through the cosmos like a lost star. 1,000 versions of him, each existing in a different possibility. His head spun. I don't understand, he whispered. The shadow's voice was gentle now, quieter. You are more than just a passenger on the Starbound train, Elias. You are a storyteller. You are the one who chooses which paths become real. Elias's breath came in shallow gasps. But I thought the book already showed me my future. The shadow flickered, its form unraveling slightly before it reformed. The book showed you a path, but paths can be rewritten. Elias's heart pounded. Then, I can change what happens. The shadow nodded. If you are willing to take the pen into your own hands. For a long moment, Elias stood in stunned silence. All this time, he had believed he was simply following a predetermined journey, that the train, the celestial realms, the visions of his past and future, they had all been leading him toward a fate already written. But now he realized the truth. He wasn't just a traveler. He was the author of his own story. His fingers tightened around the book. What do I have to do? He asked, his voice steady. The shadow stepped back, dissolving slightly at the edges. The final realm awaits. Elias's stomach twisted. What is it? The shadow's empty face seemed to gaze into him. The realm of the last chapter. A chill ran down Elias's spine. The shadow continued. It is the place where all stories end. The final stop on the Starbound train. It is there that you must make your choice. Elias's mouth was dry. Choice. The shadow did not answer. Instead, it lifted its shifting arm one final time, and the world around them began to dissolve. The spires of ink-black stone crumbled into nothingness. The swirling silver sky unraveled, pulled away by unseen hands. The very ground beneath Elias's feet gave way, and he felt himself being lifted, carried, pulled forward. The book in his hands flared with golden light. And then, darkness. The final realm awaited. A void stretched in every direction. For the first time since stepping onto the Starbound train, Elias felt utterly weightless. He was drifting, floating through a space where neither time nor gravity seemed to exist. The midnight blue book remained clutched in his hands, glowing faintly against the darkness. Then, a sound. A distant, rhythmic chime, like a bell tolling in the vastness. The darkness around him began to shift, threads of silver light weaving into existence, forming the faint outline of something immense. The void trembled, and from the nothingness, the structure began to take shape. The station. Unlike the ethereal beauty of the celestial junction, this place was stark and solemn. Towering pillars stretched into infinity, their surfaces inscribed with shifting golden symbols that pulsed with an eerie glow. The floor beneath him materialized in a shimmering cascade of light, and the moment his feet touched solid ground, gravity returned, anchoring him in place. Elias turned. The Starbound train stood on a track that seemed to emerge from nothing, its gleaming silver carriages humming softly. But something was different. The train no longer pulsed with a quiet warmth he had grown familiar with. Its exterior seemed dimmer, its glow subdued, as though waiting. And beyond it, a massive archway loomed at the end of the station, adorned with symbols Elias could not decipher. A single door stood at its center, carved from the same silver light that threaded through the pillars. The door pulsed slowly, as if alive. Elias took a cautious step forward. "You have arrived." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Elias turned sharply. From the shadows of the station, a figure emerged. Not a shadow like before, nor a celestial being bathed in light. This figure was a mirror. It took his shape, his height, his stance, but its surface was like liquid glass, reflecting countless versions of him with every movement. Its features shifted, sometimes showing his own face, sometimes revealing glimpses of himself as he might have been, or could yet become. Elias's pulse quickened. "You?" His voice was barely a whisper. The figure inclined its head. "I am the keeper of the last chapter." Elias swallowed. The shadow said this was the place where all stories end. The keeper's mirrored form rippled. "It is." Elias's grip on the book tightened. "What does that mean?" The keeper gestured toward the silver door. "Beyond this threshold lies the conclusion of your journey." Elias felt a cold weight settle in his chest. "My fate is written in the book, isn't it?" The keeper studied him for a long moment before speaking. "The book does not hold a single fate. It holds all possible endings." Elias's breath caught. "All of them." The keeper stepped forward, and with a motion of its hand, the symbols on the surrounding pillars flared to life. Images swirled into existence around them. Elias saw himself standing at the edge of a dying star, its light fading into eternal darkness. He saw himself walking through a city of endless towers, golden pages drifting from the sky like autumn leaves. He saw himself stepping off the train into a realm where no time existed, vanishing into the void. 1,000 endings, 1,000 possibilities. His mind reeled. How do I choose?" His voice was barely audible. The keeper turned toward him, its mirrored face shifting. "That is why you are here." Elias looked down at the book in his hands. The golden glow of its cover pulsed in rhythm with the silver door at the end of the station. His journey had brought him through realms of time, memory, dreams, and possibility. He had seen his past, glimpsed the vastness of existence, and learned that the universe was not a single path, but an endless expanse of choices. And now, at the end of it all, the final choice was his. His heart pounded. What happens if I walk through the door? The keeper did not move. The book will close. One story will become real. The others will fade. Elias's fingers trembled against the book's surface. One story, one ending. He had spent his life believing that fate was a fixed thing, that the course of existence was unchangeable. But now he stood at the threshold of infinite endings, and the power to decide rested in his hands. He took a slow, unsteady breath. "I don't know what to choose." The keeper regarded him with a gaze that was neither kind nor cruel. "That is the nature of endings." Elias looked at the swirling images around him, each representing a different fate. Some filled him with wonder, others with fear. Could he truly make such a decision? Then a thought struck him. He had spent so much of his journey looking outward, searching for meaning in the vastness of the universe, seeking answers in realms beyond time and space. But perhaps the answer had been with him all along. Slowly, carefully, he closed his eyes. He silenced the images, quieted the endless voices of possibility. He listened, not to the keeper, not to the station, but to himself. And in the stillness, he felt it. A single, steady thread, a path that felt right. When he opened his eyes, the keeper was watching him. Elias exhaled and took a step forward. The silver door pulsed, waiting. With a final glance back at the train, the vessel that had carried him through the cosmos, he placed a hand on the door. A warmth spread through him. The book in his hand shuddered, its golden light growing blindingly bright. The symbols on the pillars flared, and then the door swung open. Light consumed everything, and Elias stepped forward into the ending he had chosen. Light, blinding, endless, all-consuming light. For a moment, Elias was weightless again, drifting through infinity. The silver door had opened, swallowing him in brilliance, and now he was neither in the station nor on the train. He was somewhere beyond, suspended in the space between endings and beginnings. His fingers curled tightly around the midnight blue book, its cover warm in his grasp. It was the last remnant of his journey, the collection of all possible endings, all the choices that could have been. But as he moved forward, he felt it changing. The once fluid pages were solidifying, as if the infinite possibilities within were narrowing, condensing into something singular, something final. The light around him began to shift. Shapes emerged from the radiance, blurring and sharpening like memories forming out of mist. He squinted, trying to make sense of what he was seeing, and then he was standing on a shoreline. The endless glow faded, revealing a vast and tranquil sea, its surface smooth as polished glass. The water stretched into infinity, reflecting the heavens above, a sky filled with swirling constellations, moving like a living tapestry of stars. A gentle wind rolled across the shore, cool and soothing against his skin. Elias took a shaky breath. Where was he? The landscape was unlike any he had encountered before. There were no towering structures of time, no floating islands of memory, no cosmic stations guiding his path. The only landmark was a single ancient pier extending into the sea, its wooden planks worn and weathered by time. At the end of the pier, a figure stood with their back to him, gazing out at the water. Something about the figure was achingly familiar. Elias took a hesitant step forward, then another. The soft crunch of sand beneath his boots was the only sound in the stillness. As he reached the foot of the pier, the figure turned. Elias froze. It was him, not a reflection like the keeper of the last chapter, not a shadowy echo of what could have been. This was truly him, Elias, but older. His features were lined with wisdom, his eyes carrying the weight of lifetimes. He wore a deep blue coat, the color of twilight, and in his hand he held a book identical to the one Elias carried. The older Elias smiled faintly. "You made it." Elias's throat tightened. "Where am I?" The older version of himself gestured toward the sea. "This is the threshold." Elias looked out at the water. The sea stretched forever, unbroken except for a single object in the distance, a boat gently rocking in the starlit waves. It was small, almost impossibly so, yet it carried an air of significance, as if it had been waiting here for an eternity. "The last journey," the older Elias murmured. Elias turned back to him. "What does that mean?" The older version of himself studied him carefully. "Do you remember what the keeper told you?" Elias swallowed, nodding. "That the book holds all endings, but only one becomes real." The older Elias nodded in return. "You've chosen to walk through the silver door. That choice has brought you here, to the final moment before the ending takes shape." Elias glanced down at the book in his hands. It felt heavier than before, its pages no longer shifting with endless possibilities. It was closing. Every traveler who reaches the threshold must make a choice, the older Elias continued. Some return to their world, carrying only the faintest memory of this journey. Others step forward into something new. Into the unknown. Elias's heart pounded. And what happens if I board that boat? The older Elias's gaze drifted to the horizon. No one truly knows. Silence hung between them. Elias looked back at the sea. The water was impossibly still, reflecting the constellations above with perfect clarity. It was like looking into a mirror of the cosmos itself. He could see everything, the stars, the galaxies, the endless vastness of existence. And for the first time, he truly understood. This journey had never been about reaching a fixed destination. It had never been about finding one absolute truth. The starbound train, the celestial realms, the voices of fate and memory, each had been guiding him to this single, inevitable moment. The choice was his alone. He took a slow breath and turned back to the older version of himself. What did you choose? The older Elias's expression softened. I chose to wait. Elias frowned. Wait for what? The older version of himself gestured toward the shore, toward the shifting sands beneath their feet. For you. Elias's breath caught. Realization dawned like the breaking of a new star. Every traveler who had come before him, every version of himself that had ever made this journey, had left behind a remnant, a fragment of their existence, waiting at the threshold, guiding the next traveler who would one day arrive. The cycle had always been there. He was both the seeker and the guide. Elias's hands trembled as he looked down at his book. The final pages almost sealed. The end was near. The choice was his. Would he return, carrying only the faintest memory of this voyage? Would he board the boat, surrendering himself to the unknown? Or would he remain? A presence stirred in the air around him, like the whispers of all the travelers who had come before. He felt the weight of eternity pressing against him, urging him forward. Elias closed his eyes. Then he chose. With steady hands, he lifted the book and opened it. A surge of golden light poured from the pages, washing over the pier, the sea, the sky. The stars above shifted, aligning into patterns unseen before. The boat on the water shimmered, dissolving into motes of light. The choice had been made. As the final page turned, Elias felt himself dissolve into the cosmos, becoming one with the endless, eternal story of the universe. He had become the next guide, and as the light faded, only the threshold remained, waiting for the next traveler to arrive. The train, once a steady companion, had come to a gentle halt. Its shimmering silver body was now motionless, resting against the luminous platform made of starlight. The traveler disembarked slowly, their feet brushing the soft surface, as though the very ground beneath them was made from the fabric of dreams. It felt like they were standing at the threshold of the universe itself, within the heart of something vast, beyond the comprehension of mortal minds. Around them, the cosmos stretched infinitely. Stars twinkled like ancient lanterns, their light soft but filled with stories untold. Nebulae swirled in graceful spirals, their gaseous tendrils of light glowing in shades of violet, sapphire, and silver. Distant galaxies spun in slow, majestic arcs, their glow weaving tapestries of color that seemed to shift with the rhythm of time. The air hummed with energy, charged at the essence of creation itself, and there was a quiet, palpable presence in the space, a knowing that this was a place where decisions were made, where the threads of fate converged. And in the center of this otherworldly expanse stood the figure, the one who had been waiting, the one who held the secrets of the stars and the wisdom of the ages. The traveler gazed at the figure, feeling a sense of awe and reverence. They were no longer just a being. They were the embodiment of the universe itself. The figure's form shimmered with the glow of distant stars, their features an ever-shifting combination of light and shadow, like the ebb and flow of galaxies. Their face, though constantly changing, was filled with kindness, with the deep understanding of someone who had watched the dance of the stars for eternity. "Welcome, traveler," the figure said. Their voice was not a sound, but a vibration that resonated deep within the traveler's very soul. It echoed in the quiet spaces between heartbeats and filled the air with an overwhelming sense of peace. "You have journeyed far through realms beyond time, through the forgotten echoes of the universe, and now you stand at the final threshold. Here, you will make the starborn choice." The traveler felt their heart beat faster, the weight of the words settling on them like a heavy cloak. They had traveled through realms of knowledge, of forgotten voices, of timeless suns. They had met celestial beings who whispered truths older than the stars themselves. But now, standing before this being of light and shadow, they realized that the true challenge was not the journey they had already taken, but the choice that lay before them. The moment of truth had arrived, and the path they chose now would shape the course of their eternity. The figure extended a hand toward the traveler, and in that gesture, the universe seemed to shift. The stars above, once distant and cold, moved closer, swirling gently as if to listen. Galaxies turned their gaze upon the traveler, the vastness of the cosmos now waiting with bated breath. The figure's hand was glowing, pulsating with stardust, and the traveler could feel the warmth emanating from it, a warmth that was both comforting and humbling. "Two paths await you," the figure said, their voice now a soft whisper, like the rustling of the leaves in a cosmic wind. "Two choices, each leading to a different future. Neither path is better than the other. Each is simply a reflection of who you are and who you wish to become." The traveler looked down, and before them, two paths began to form, each stretching out into the infinity of space. The first path shimmered with a soft, golden light, like the fading glow of a dying star. It stretched toward a familiar, comforting sight, a reflection of Earth, their home. It was a world filled with green hills, vast oceans, and cities bustling with life. It was the world the traveler had left behind, the world they had once known. The path was lined with memories, with faces they had loved, with moments of warmth and connection. It was a path that felt safe, that offered comfort and familiarity. But even as they gazed upon it, the traveler felt something pull at them, a subtle tug at their heart, as if the path were incomplete, as if something was missing. "Return if you wish," the figure said, their voice gentle and full of compassion. "You may go back to your world, to the life you knew, and live it as you once did. You will carry with you the wisdom of the stars, though it will grow dimmer as time passes. The memories will fade, like dreams upon waking, and the light of the cosmos will grow distant, like a fading star. But you will have a life. You will walk once more upon the earth, among the people you love, and your journey will be remembered only as a distant memory, a dream." The traveler felt the pull of the path. They could see themselves walking through familiar streets, feeling the cool breeze against their skin, seeing the faces of those they had known, hearing the sounds of everyday life, the laughter, the chatter, the hum of the world. It was a peaceful, simple life. Yet deep within them, they knew that it would be a life forever touched by the cosmic truths they had learned, a life that would forever be haunted by the knowledge that there was more, that the stars held secrets they could never fully share. The second path stretched out before them, a bridge made of pure starlight, glowing with a cold, silvery hue. It seemed to stretch endlessly, vanishing into the depths of the universe, into the heart of the unknown. As the traveler gazed upon it, they saw no familiar landscapes, no comfortable sights. It was a path that led into the cosmic void, where stars were born and died, where time flowed in spirals, and where the secrets of the universe were whispered on the cosmic winds. It was a path of uncertainty, but also one of infinite possibility. Where you may stay, the figure continued, their voice now filled with quiet power. You may become one with the stars, a guardian of these realms, a keeper of the cosmic balance. Time will be your ally, and you will witness the rise and fall of galaxies, the birth of stars, the death of worlds. You will stand as a witness to the infinite cycles of the universe, watching as the cosmos unfolds, ever-changing and ever-eternal. You will no longer walk among the mortals, but instead, you will become part of the very fabric of existence. You will carry the light of the stars in your soul, and your existence will be as timeless as the universe itself. The traveler felt the call of the second path. It was a path that promised eternity, that promised to keep them in the embrace of the cosmos forever. The idea of becoming part of the stars, of witnessing the ebb and flow of time, of watching the universe unfold in its endless beauty, filled them with. But there was also a deep sense of sacrifice. They would leave behind their old life, the people they had loved, the world they had known. They would become a guardian, a timeless witness to the universe, but they would no longer belong to the world of mortals. The figure watched the travelers silently, allowing them time to ponder. You see, neither path is easy. To return means to live a life filled with memories, but it will fade. To stay means to become a part of the universe itself, a guardian of the cosmos, but it comes with the price of eternal solitude. The choice is yours, but it is not one that can be undone. The travelers stood silently, feeling the weight of the decision pressing upon them. They thought of the world they had left behind, the warmth of the sun on their face, the sound of rain falling on leaves, the smell of earth after a storm. They thought of the people they had loved, of their home, of their life. And yet, they also thought of the infinite stars, of the cosmic mysteries that lay beyond the veil of their understanding. They thought of the wisdom they had gained, of the truths they had uncovered, and of the beauty that had filled their heart. The figure's voice broke through their thoughts, as soft as the wind. There is no right or wrong choice, traveler. It is simply a reflection of who you are and who you wish to become. Whatever you choose, the universe will honor your decision. The stars will remember you, and the choice you make will become part of the cosmic dance. The traveler closed their eyes, feeling the pull of both paths, the tug of the familiar and the call of the unknown. And in that moment, they realized something. It was not the path that mattered. It was the journey of discovering who they truly were, of learning to balance the light and darkness within themselves. They had already traveled through realms beyond time, had already glimpsed the vast beauty of existence. They had already made the journey to the stars, and it had changed them. Now it was time to choose. The traveler took a deep breath and with quiet resolve stepped forward, choosing their path. The journey had come to an end, but something had changed. The traveler could feel it in every fiber of their being. The soft hum of the cosmos still echoed in their soul, a distant whisper from the farthest reaches of the universe. They stood now, back in their small, quiet room, the familiar scent of earth, the soft rustling of wind against the window. The silver train had long since faded from sight, its ethereal body dissolving into the stardust of memory. Yet, in the stillness of the night, the traveler knew they had not left the cosmos behind. It was with them, inside them, in the very air they breathed. The room, once so small, now seemed to stretch infinitely, as though the boundaries of their reality had expanded. The stars outside the window were brighter than they had ever been, their light now more than just a distant flicker. They seemed alive, reaching toward the traveler, as if the universe itself remembered them. The traveler could see it now with new eyes, the delicate balance of time, the soft glow of distant suns, the endless dance of the galaxies. For a moment, they simply stood there, rooted to the floor, gazing out into the night sky, their mind filled with memories of the realms they had visited. The moonlit library, the river of lost echoes, the gardens of Evernight, their experiences were still vivid, etched into the fabric of their soul. They could still hear the soft rustling of stardust, still feel the warmth of the ancient suns, still see the faces of the celestial beings who had shared their wisdom. It was all there, like a dream that had not faded with the morning light, but had become a part of them. And yet, the weight of the choice they had made, the path they had chosen, still lingered within them. It was not a burden, but a gentle guiding presence. The stars had whispered to them, and they had listened. Now they had returned, but they were not the same. The traveler had seen the vastness of the cosmos, had glimpsed the eternal flow of time, and in doing so had become a part of something greater than themselves. They had touched the stars, and the stars had touched them in return. They walked slowly to the window, their feet light, as if they were floating just above the ground. The night air was cool against their skin, but it felt different now, filled with the essence of the celestial realms. The traveler placed their hand against the glass, feeling the soft pulse of the universe beneath their fingertips. It was as though they could still feel the cosmic train's gentle hum, still hear the distant whispers of the realms they had left behind. They could almost see the shimmering silver of the train as it moved beyond the stars, carrying travelers like them through the endless expanse of the universe. The stars above flickered brightly, their light soft but steady, like a distant memory. The traveler looked up, and for the first time, they truly understood what it meant to be connected to the universe. The stars were not separate from them, but a part of them. They were not just distant points of light. They were the threads that wove the fabric of existence, the stories of the cosmos that played out in an eternal dance. And the traveler, having journeyed through the realms, had become part of that dance. Their story was now woven into the stars, their path a part of the ever-expanding universe. But as they stood there, gazing at the night sky, the traveler realized something profound. They had not truly left the stars behind. No, the stars had come with them. The wisdom of the celestial realms was now inside them, guiding them in ways they could not yet fully understand. The dreams they had once thought were distant and fleeting were now a part of their waking world. The choices they had made, the lessons they had learned, the beings they had met, they were not just memories. They were living truths, interwoven with the fabric of their existence. The traveler turned away from the window, a sense of peace settling over them. The world outside, though familiar, now felt different. It was as if they had been given the ability to see it through new eyes, to see the beauty in the small moments, the magic in the mundane. The rustling of leaves in the wind, the warmth of the sun on their skin, the sound of water trickling in a nearby stream. These things, once ordinary, now held a deeper significance. The universe was alive in every moment, in every breath, in every flicker of light. And yet, there was a quiet longing that remained. The stars, though always present, seemed distant now, as if the traveler was separated from them by a thin veil. They could still feel their pull, still hear the soft whispers of the celestial realms, but they knew that their place in the cosmos was different now. They had made their choice, and with it came a gentle acceptance of the life they had returned to. They were no longer just a traveler. They were both a part of the universe and a witness to its beauty. The travelers sat by their window, gazing out at the stars, and in that moment, they understood the balance between the worlds. The realms they had visited were not separate from Earth, but part of it. They were connected by an unseen thread, a thread that ran through all of existence, binding the celestial realms with a mortal world. Time, the traveler realized, was not linear. It was a dance, a rhythm that played out in the cosmos, and they were part of that rhythm. They were both a part of the stars and the earth. In that connection, they found peace. As the night deepened, the stars outside grew brighter, and the traveler's heart swelled with quiet contentment. They had returned home, but they had not returned empty-handed. They had brought with them the knowledge of the stars, the wisdom of the realms, and the deep understanding that the universe was far more vast, far more beautiful than they had ever imagined. And in that moment, the traveler knew that they would never truly be alone. The stars were always there, just beyond the veil, watching over them, guiding them, whispering their eternal truths. They had come home, yes, but home now was not just a place. It was a connection, a bond with the cosmos that could never be broken. The traveler lay down, their mind quiet and peaceful, their heart full of the universe's stories. And as they closed their eyes, they felt the soft embrace of the stars, a gentle reminder that the journey was never truly over. The universe was vast, and they were a part of it always. The train would one day return when the time was right, but for now, the traveler was content to wait, knowing that they would always carry the stars with them. The stars above twinkled softly, their light gentle and eternal, as if they too were whispering a quiet lullaby, bidding the traveler to rest. And in that peaceful silence, the traveler drifted into a dreamless sleep, surrounded by the light of the cosmos, knowing that the universe would always be there, waiting just beyond the stars.